Hi everyone, this is Casey and Jenny. We see some people already logged on. Welcome. We're going to get started just after noon. We want to give everyone a chance to sign on, so hang tight and we'll be with you in a few minutes.
Hi everybody, this is Casey and Jenny again, just giving you a quick reminder that we're going to give folks another minute or two to log on, so we'll be right with you.
Hi everyone.
Hi everyone, welcome. Happy Friday to you. We're so excited that you have tuned in with us for the first episode of Bobcast Live. My name is Jenni Peterson, and I am the Associate Director for Regional Alumni Programs at NYU. I'm so happy to be with you alongside my colleague, Casey McAlpin.
Hi everyone, my name is Casey. I work on our Global Alumni Relations team. I specifically work with our alumni clubs in Canada, in South America, Australia, Europe, and South Africa, and I work with a team that works with our alumni clubs all throughout the world outside of the United States.
Yeah, so we know that a lot of our volunteers have logged in today. Thanks so much for taking time to join us. Before we get started on how to plan this successful event, we just wanted to share with you a little bit about how Bobcast Live came to be. So Bobcast Live is a new initiative of the NYU Alumni Association. And in our roles, we're always thinking about new ways to provide you guys with ongoing resources. We know that we send you a lot of information via the web and email, and we thought, well, how fun would it be to test out a video every once in a while? So we'll continue to do this. Each episode will touch on sort of a different part of community organizing and engaging. So if you have ideas for future episodes or you'd like to be involved as a co-host, we'll give you some contact information at the end of the video, and we would love for you to join us as we sort of begin this pilot program.
Yeah, so just one logistic before we get started. On the right side of your screen, you'll see a place where you can enter questions. Feel free to do that throughout the presentation. We'll try to touch on a few of them at the end. If we have time and anything we don't get to, we'll reach out to you directly to answer your questions.
Yeah.
So we're going to pull up our PowerPoint now for the first episode of Bobcast Live. In this episode, we're going to discuss how to plan a successful event.
All right, so let's get started.
Yeah, so we're going to start with the basics just to let you know what we're going to discuss in this little video today. So we're just going to talk about the kind of alumni events we hold here at NYU. So these events have all kinds of topics. Some of them are social, some of them are service-oriented, some of them even have themes. Then we're going to go through the planning process for events. So this is things like picking leaders for your events, volunteers to help you out, the timeline for planning an event. And finally, we're going to talk about how to make your alumni event a success. So this is attendance, getting people to your event, but also engagement. Are people happy to be there? And surveys and feedback so we know what we did well at each event and how we can continue to improve.
Yeah, and we know that for the folks that have logged on, some of you have probably been with us for a long time, and a little bit of this might look redundant to you, but since it's our first episode, and we do have a lot of new volunteers this year that we're excited to welcome to the NYU community, we thought we'd start at sort of the very basics, and then in future episodes, we'll dig into things that are maybe a little bit more nuanced.
Yeah, and I just want to take 1 second to make sure our PowerPoint is showing. Can we check that our screen is fully shared? There we go. Awesome.
There we go. Thanks for chiming in, guys.
Yeah.
So the basics. Now we're going to do a little bit about how to find an event. So something that we talk to our volunteers a lot about is, we live in an experience economy. So you're probably already getting invitations through Groupon or Living Social, maybe Facebook Live about events that you could be attending in your community. Rather than feeling like you need to recreate the wheel, start with those events as sort of a basic starting point. So it could be a cooking class, a sports game. Those events really kind of help get our creative juices going when we're thinking about things that we could be doing. Ask your audience, connect with alums at the events themselves and ask them what they might be interested in attending or even hosting. Another thing is to collaborate. So, there are so many departments and clubs at NYU. It's one of the great things about working here and being involved with the university. We encourage you to leverage those connections. A great example of this is our NYU Alumni Club in Washington, D.C. Recently welcomed the Black Alumni Network to D.C. for an event with the new Smithsonian Museum. The event was really championed by the Black Alumni Network, but it was great to see those two communities come together outside of New York. And then finally, NYU alums. Our alumni network is over 500,000 strong. So we have connections to interesting restaurants, venues, performers on Broadway. That's a great place to get started too. And some of you might know that LinkedIn has a great function where you can actually search alumni by region. So you can get onto LinkedIn, search NYU alumni by San Francisco, Shanghai. So we often do that in our office and with our volunteers to see if maybe there's somebody that had slipped through the cracks we don't have in the database, but is connected to a really cool space. And I would say that most often when we reach out to those folks, they're really excited to partner with us and to share their NYU experience and now their career outside of NYU.
So now the NYU event timeline. So some of you on this call may have planned events for us before, and maybe some of you haven't. So we're really just starting with the basics because we think even this refresher will be really useful for everyone. So this is an example of the ideal NYU event timeline. So 6 to 8 weeks before an event date, we want you to start brainstorming your idea, and we want you to vet this idea with your fellow alumni volunteers and also your staff partner. This is around the time when you want to confirm a venue, pick a date, a time, come up with a description of the event, and think about if there are going to be any costs associated with this event. Once that's all established, you can submit an event communication request form. This form is available on our website, or you can get it from your staff partner. That triggers our communications team to start working on the invitation and the registration page for your event. About a month before the event, we're going to review the details. We're going to get that website up with the registration page. We'll create a Facebook event, and we'll send out an invitation email to all of the alumni in your area. This will let them know about the event and also encourage them to register. Finally, the week of the event, we'll want you to check in with the venue, confirm all final details for your event, and we'll send out those final details in a confirmation to all of our alumni registrants, people who signed up for your event. This is to remind them, hey, you signed up for this event and we're really looking forward to seeing you, but also to provide them with any last minute details, parking information, how to get there, where to find us.
What to wear.
And after the event, we send out a survey just to ask people what they loved about the event and what we can improve moving forward. And also make sure to thank anyone who helped you out with your event. That's your fellow alumni volunteers, perhaps the venue, perhaps a speaker you invited.
Mm-hmm. So when we think about an event, of course, budgeting is one of the most important parts of the planning process. We like to say that before you even get to that step, start with an idea. And we want you to think big and we want you to be creative. That's part of the great joy of working at and being involved with the NYU community. So once you've got an idea in place, we need to go ahead and assess the cost per person. So what is the cost for a venue? Do we need to rent a space? What will that cost? Are we going to have food and beverage? What will that cost? Are there any sort of materials that we need to come with? So if it's a workshop per se, do we need pads of paper, water bottles, pens for our guests? So we like to go through all of the specific details, and then we'll build out a budget. Your staff partners are happy to help you with this process. NYU alumni clubs do not have a set budget per year per se. As you can imagine, now that we've got over 85 clubs globally, even if we were to set aside a small amount for each club, that number grows pretty quickly. So what we do instead is we'll work with you to bring down the cost as much as possible. So oftentimes our events operate on a pass-through model of cost, meaning if it's a happy hour, the alum is going to buy the cocktail. If it's a museum tour, the alum is responsible for their cost of attending the museum. That being said, we are a nonprofit and we're a recognizable brand. And so oftentimes we can help step in and negotiate a great discount for folks. Or what about special access? Okay, we're going to be at a museum. Is there a chance they might let us in an hour early or for an after hours tour? Mm-hmm. That's the type of stuff that really sets our events apart and makes them feel meaningful. And then of course, on an ad hoc basis, we're happy to talk with you about providing a subsidy. I think a great example of that would be, let's say you find a wonderful speaker and you're in Los Angeles where space is hard to come by and you just can't find a venue to host the 100 people that you are certain are going to attend. Well, we'd hate to see that event fall by the wayside simply because we can't find a space. So we're happy to work with you one-on-one to have a conversation about that budget.
Yeah, the most important thing about budgeting, I think, is work closely with your staff partner. Mm-hmm. We can come up with some really creative solutions for each event.
Absolutely.
So marketing an event is a super, super important part about making it successful. So just to give you an idea of what we do from the Office of Alumni Relations, the communications team will put together an email for you and a registration page for you. This image you see on the right is an example of an email that went out about an event for RAN, one of our alumni clubs. However, although we're really willing to make this beautiful email invitation for you, also the Facebook event, we really rely on our alumni volunteers to come up with the copy, the description of the event. This way we can let attendees know what to expect. So in this copy, we'll want to know the basic details, where to go, how to find you, what time, how to get there, but also some creative language. Why should people be excited to join you at this event? As mentioned, we will create a Facebook event for your alumni event. We encourage you to share that with your network, mm-hmm. share it on your timeline. Make sure people see it who maybe, don't check their email that often or don't check the alumni Facebook page that often. Push it out to your networks. One kind of crucial part of making sure you have a successful event is that you are going to deliver the event you're marketing. Basically, that just means make sure that the details you're providing, the event you're describing is the event you're going to put on. And one example of this is a discounted event mm-hmm. versus an engagement event. To be clear, both events are great. We love both of these types of events for alumni events. A discounted event, for example, is a baseball game. You get discounted tickets. You invite all alumni to purchase these discounted tickets. Maybe you're going to run into an alumni in this section where you're all sitting, but there's no necessarily like formal engagement piece. However, if you had a meet and greet before the game, that would be an engagement piece. Again, both of these things are great. They're both great add-ons to this alumni event. Just be clear about which one you're delivering, and that'll make your attendees a lot happier.
I agree. I think that's a great point. And we'll talk about a baseball game later in our case studies, but specifically with athletic events, if we're not clear about an event being just a discounted ticket, then folks show up expecting to meet people. And we want to make sure that they get exactly what they signed up for. So if all we're doing is negotiating a discounted ticket, we want to let them know. Adding the meet and greet beforehand really, I think, enhances the event and turns it into an engagement opportunity. So that's always the best case scenario.
Exactly.
So it's the day of the event. You have been working closely with your staff partner and with the venue. We've got the invitation out. You're excited to be there. What are the things that you need to be thinking about in order to make it a successful event? First and foremost, are people able to find you? This may sound really sort of, basic, but it happens a lot where we do events, let's say, on the 4th floor. We have a speaker and the space is on the 4th floor and alums show up in the lobby and nobody's told them where to go. Well, that's not the first impression that we want to leave. So make sure that you're thinking about things like signage. If you're directing folks to a parking lot, is there somebody standing in the lot to sort of let them know, hey, head down this hallway and take a right, and then you'll see the group. I think that's something that really can't be overlooked. Right. I always say the most important thing is a warm welcome. So an anecdote that helps me think about this is you would never invite someone to your home, shake their hand, and then leave them alone for the rest of the evening. We treat our events the same way. So being an engaging volunteer means both checking folks in and then checking on them during the event, making your way around the room. You might have somebody who showed up by themselves and is standing in a corner, a little bit introverted, maybe doesn't know how to break conversation. For you to walk up and introduce them to a fellow alum that you know and sort of help facilitate that interaction goes a long way and is a really important part of making the event successful. Of course, attendance is something that we think about a lot. We put a lot of time, certainly you put a lot of time as volunteers into planning these events. So we want to know who showed up. And that gives us a better framework as we're planning forward, because oftentimes if we do a great event in Shanghai, we'll think about also doing it in Boston. So having that data about how many folks actually showed up is really helpful for us. And then photos, as Casey said, we're very active on Facebook. We have Flickr accounts and web pages for all of our clubs. Having photos of the events that you host really helps us build a narrative about your community and allows people to see what to expect when they're going to come to an event. So take the photos, send them our way. We'll do everything to get them online, but that's a big piece of this too. And then, of course, thank them for coming. So as folks are leaving, Casey mentioned earlier that first impression and the last impression. As volunteers, you have a unique opportunity to really be the last thing that an alum thinks about, particularly if it's their first time coming to an event. So even a quick, hey, it was so nice to meet you. Thanks so much for taking time to join us tonight. We really hope you'll get involved with the community. I think goes a long way.
Yeah, and I'd add one more thing to the photos. Something I love when our alumni clubs send us photos so we can see what the event was really like. But I also think of the alum who was thinking about coming to the event and didn't make it. Then they see this photo online and they're like, oh, I really wish I went. That looks really fun. And now they're more likely to come to your next event.
Absolutely.
Great. So now we've kind of covered the basics of how to plan your event, and we want to now talk about what will make your event successful. After this slide, we're going to dive into some case studies, some examples of successful events, which we'll touch on each of these, but first we'll just give you a brief overview. So quality of the event, we kind of already touched on these things, but deliver the event you're marketing. As Jenny mentioned, make sure your attendees get to meet new people. Luckily, a lot of alumni are already friends. They already have great connections, but this also means attendees tend to talk to the same people. So as the host or the planner of an event, it's great to grab some people and introduce them to someone new. That really helps people walk away from an event being like, that was really nice. I met some new NYU alumni I didn't know were in the area. And first impressions and last impressions. We want everyone to feel good that they chose to spend their time with us at an NYU alumni event. So now what makes an event have that wow factor? We want to make sure all of our events have something special or unique to them or an add-on. This can be a variety of things. You lowered the cost, so it's a discount, lowered the cost of a ticket to an athletic game as we had discussed. Maybe it's a really cool venue, a place you wouldn't go on your own, or a place you've been meaning to go in the city, a landmark that you haven't made it to. That's where the alumni event is. So you'll be more willing, more, you'll plan on going to make sure you get to that venue, or special access. And this can be special access to a venue, but it can also be to a speaker, to meet someone really cool, someone new that you wouldn't have the opportunity to meet otherwise. And finally, we had touched on this before, but we do send a survey after all of our events where we basically ask alumni, would you be willing to attend again? What did you love about the event? And what could we do better? So this is kind of where we get the feedback. Was our event successful, or do we need to improve upon it? Your staff partner will share that feedback with you, and it's just a really great way to make sure that every event we do is better than the last one.
Absolutely. Our joke here is awesome or awkward. We've all been to events where you leave thinking, that was awesome, or that was a little awkward. And I think, as Casey said, working the room, making sure people feel welcome goes a long way toward making sure that our events fall on the awesome end of the spectrum, which is always what we're hoping for. So we're going to go into a few case studies now just to give you some concrete examples of the types of events that we've been talking about. You'll note that these case studies start with sort of really basic events and then are going to move into events that take a little bit more planning and are a little bit more complex. Our hope is that since we have volunteers tuning in from all over the globe and alums who have been with us for a few years and alums who have just started, that there will be a little something here for everyone. So the first case study comes to us out of the Women's Initiative and the recent Alumni Network. Those are two New York City-based clubs. As we mentioned, anytime clubs can partner, that's a fantastic opportunity for us. And so this was a very easy event, a paint night, right? Many of you have probably done this with your friends. You sign up, you pay a small fee, you go to the class, all of the materials are provided for you. You might get a glass of wine while you're there. So it's easy to plan. It's quite engaging. We were able to negotiate a discount for this particular event. And because you're working with a host organization, in this case, the art gallery that's hosting the paint night, there's really this built-in success there, right? You know that they do this all the time. They know how to run an event. So if you're a new volunteer, that's something to think about, is working with an organization like this that can help guarantee success at the event. And then, of course, this one we love because they painted the arch. So there was that tie back to NYU that we had mentioned earlier.
Great. So our second case study we've kind of been referencing throughout this presentation, but I'll touch on it quickly again. The NYU Alumni Club in Toronto every year goes to the Yankees versus the Blue Jays game. So our big ones here are that in recent years we've added actually a social meet and greet before the game because we wanted to turn it into more of an engagement event instead of just a discount event. Again, we also appreciate discount events, but we wanted this one to be to have an engagement component. This event is family friendly, so alumni have the opportunity to bring their kids or their friends or their significant others, kind of grow the NYU family, which we love. And they specifically go to the Yankees game, so there's that tie-in to the New York City experience for everyone who went to NYU here in Washington Square.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's a really important point. When we plan these events, what appeals to you might not appeal to everyone. And we're really trying to build community across all graduates. So it doesn't matter what school you went to or what year you graduated. And for folks who have families, sometimes it can be hard to attend some of the more social happy hour type events that we do. So something like this, where you can bring the whole family, I think is just such a wonderful program. So our next case study comes to us from the NYU Alumni Club in New Jersey. Throughout the year at NYU, we do some sort of marquee initiatives that we invite all of our clubs to participate in if they're interested. So that would include Alumni Weekend, NYU One Day, and of course, our Global Day of Service. So a few years ago, for the Global Day of Service, our NYU Alumni Club in New Jersey did an event with a nonprofit called New Jersey Seeds. And this nonprofit essentially allows alums to come in and provide mentorship to students in their community who really need it. So on a Saturday morning, our alumni volunteers brought breakfast, bagels, and coffee. They were able to share a little bit of their NYU experience, which deepens their connection to the university, of course. And then it really reinforced the importance of our club in that local community. So it was really a beautiful program. And I really think that community service programs are some of the best programs that we do. So again, family friendly.
Yeah, and I'd add this was with Global Day of Service, which is something we do every year. It's an event that all alumni clubs are invited to participate in. And I'd add, since I work with my global clubs who are a little further from Washington Square, or a lot further from Washington Square, depending on the club, it's nice to have this one thing that a lot of alumni clubs are participating in. It really makes you feel like you're part of the university again. You're part of this huge community.
Yeah, this year I believe we did 40 some odd events for the Global Day of Service across the globe, all in the month of April. So stay tuned for April 2019 and maybe start thinking about something that you could do in your local community to get folks together in the spirit of service under the NYU flag.
So our case study number 4 is a book club, which was held by the Black Alumni Network. We loved this idea. There are definitely big wins in a book club event. Firstly, there's an academic aspect to it. So of course, book club is social, it's fun, you hang out, you talk, but there's also that academic component, which really makes you feel like you're back at NYU. Book clubs tend to be small and intimate. This makes it easy to connect with one another, whether it's people you already know or people you're just meeting. And there's lots of location options for book club, which is awesome because that is sometimes kind of a challenge we deal with. Where can we host this event? Book clubs can be in your home. They can be in the quiet part of a cafe or a restaurant. So we really loved this event. This was a really creative idea.
Yeah, book clubs are fun. If you just moved to a new city and you don't know anybody, you might not go to a happy hour because you feel like, what if I end up standing by myself at the corner of the bar? You're probably more likely to go to something like a book club because you know that there will be other folks there by themselves too and some sort of a guided discussion component. So we really love this program. The next program is one of my personal favorites from all of the years that I've worked at NYU. The NYU Alumni Club in Boston last year held a celebration of Indian Independence Day. One of our local volunteers, Mandeep, offered to host this at his home. And it was just a wonderful opportunity for him to share a little bit of his culture, his NYU experience, his life experience. So he had folks over. We did it sort of potluck style. So everybody brought something. He led them through the cooking process and shared a little bit about the meals and what they meant and the importance of that day. And it's something that I think could easily be replicated in really any city where we have alumni communities. So we included this case study because you don't always have to think big. You know, if alums leave feeling like they had a meaningful interaction, even if it's only a dozen alumni, for us, that's a big win.
Yeah, I would add, earlier on, we were talking about attendance at events and how that's important to us. That's not to say we don't value small events.
Absolutely.
An event like this is extremely meaningful. A small group that makes a great connection is a really successful alumni event too.
Absolutely.
So this alumni event was the NYU Alumni Club in London. They held a treasure hunt at the British Museum, which was so fun. A big one here is that they visited a local favorite, and this is kind of what we were touching on before when we talked about a big wow being a venue. Sometimes you might not choose to pick a location because you're like, probably everyone's been there already. But actually, a lot of people haven't been there or haven't been there with friends or with the alumni club. So even though the British Museum is kind of a staple in London, we got great turnout for this event. It encouraged friendly competition. It was a treasure hunt, but this also meant that there was a team building aspect. So we actually created the teams ourselves, which meant that the same people wouldn't be talking to the same people. We mixed and mingled people in their groups and encouraged them to work together. They had a lot of fun. It's an event we're hoping to do again. And I think it's one that could be replicated in a lot of areas.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that.
Oh, and this one too. So the NYU Alumni Club in Shanghai did an afternoon tea in support of NYU One Day. So we've already touched on a cultural event. This is another cultural event that was really special. It focused on fundraising for scholarship, which is a really meaningful way to contribute and to feel connected back to the university. And kind of, I had mentioned this during the Global Day of Service slide, but NYU One Day is another university-wide event. It doesn't matter what campus you're at, if you're far from Washington Square, close to Washington Square. On this day, everyone is participating in One Day. So for your NYU Alumni Club to also participate in One Day really makes you feel like you're part of this huge network, this huge NYU family.
Absolutely. And NYU One Day each year takes place in March. So that'll be another spring program that we'll look forward to working with our clubs on planning in the months ahead. And then our last event came to us out of the NYU Alumni Club in Austin. This is an event that we did about a year ago, but one that we really like to highlight because there was so much thought and effort put into it. This is sort of the top tier of the types of events that we're looking to do in the regions. So if you did not know, Austin is the new Silicon Valley. No offense to our alumni club in Silicon Valley, but it has a great emerging tech scene. And so one of our local volunteers, a woman by the name of Laura Hill, who is fantastic, said, I really want to put together a program around this event. And so what she did was reached out to a local co-working space in Austin and asked them to start if they might be interested in donating a venue. So this co-working space said, yeah, absolutely. We'd love to get people in the door to learn a little bit about what we do. So that was sort of the first big check off the list. Then she went to LinkedIn, as we sort of touched on earlier, and started to find who are the NYU alumni in Austin working in the tech space. Turns out we have a ton of them. And so she reached out to 3 alums, and we were able to help her get in touch with them to say, hey, we're putting something together. We'd love for you to share your experience. They all responded positively, and we had great representation across schools, which was really exciting for us. And she was able to participate in a moderated panel. The sort of cherry on top is that we wanted to tie the program back to New York. And of course, we wanted to have a little bit of food after a long conversation with a panel. Well, it turns out that there's a local pizzeria in Austin that's owned by a husband and wife couple who went to NYU. So we gave them a call and they said we'd be happy to drop off some pies, and the whole thing sort of came together seamlessly. So that's an event that takes a little bit longer to plan, but really meaningful. And I think all of the speakers felt honored to be a part of it. It made them feel good to share their experience, and it made the whole community, I think, realize, wow, NYU has a presence here in Austin, and we're part of this growing tech scene. And that really, engenders a bit of pride in the university. I was lucky to be on site for this event. It was a really cool thing to be part of.
Yeah, and I'd we hear from our alumni a lot. I want to have a speaker event, but I don't personally know anyone who could be a good speaker. We encourage you to work with us, your staff partners. Reach out to the other alumni you know in the region, ask them who they know, and don't be afraid to search on LinkedIn. We found great people on LinkedIn that we didn't know about previously, and they're now so happy to be part of our community.
Absolutely. So that takes us to the end of our case studies. Yes. As we said, we wanted to provide some information for you. So I'll run through this quickly. Do you want to see if we have any questions real quick while we're going through the resources? So Alumni Club or alumni.nyu.edu/club resources is a website where we put quick links to all of the information that we were speaking about. So the event communication request form, there's information about SurveyMonkey. We have a sample planning calendar on that website. So if you're looking for a place to get your sort of creative juices flowing, and then contacts for all of your staff partners. Additionally, if you have ideas about future episodes of Bobcast Live, reach out to us. So us.alumni@nyu.edu is the website for our US programs.
And alumni.global@nyu.edu is how you can get in touch with me and my team who works with the alumni clubs outside of the United States.
And we are very much part of the same team. So rest assured, if you reach out to one of us, we'll be sure to share with the other. And our hope is that future episodes of this platform can be co-hosted by alums across the globe, which would be a really neat thing to do.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to hearing from you, your feedback and otherwise. In the meantime, I see we've got at least one question here. Someone has asked, will there be a recording made available? And that's a really great question. The answer is yes, there will. We've been recording this presentation. We are going to get it up on our website so we can share it with everyone. It might take us a week or so, but we'll certainly notify you when that time comes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see. I see we have another question here. Can you get a printout of today's text? That's a really good question. Thank you for reminding us. Do you want to talk about the takeaway handout?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have 2 alumni club volunteers, Danielle Esquivel out of the NYU Alumni Club in Los Angeles and Lilia Cabello-Drain out of the NYU Alumni Club in Seattle, who are currently working on a 1-page document that will encompass all of this information. So they're both longtime volunteers and are really thought partners with us, in addition to many global volunteers, about how we can continue to provide ongoing resources. And we said to them, is this something you'd be interested in? And they are taking it on. And so they worked with us on this PowerPoint and are now converting it into sort of a one-page simpler document. So we'd be happy to give you a printout of both the PowerPoint, and then we'll certainly follow up with you to share the one-page document as an ongoing resource.
Yeah, and I see we have one final question I'll touch on, but I do see it's 12:30 and we want to be respectful of your time, so we'll wrap it up after this. I see a question that asks if they can get more examples of case studies, and that's a really great question. So I can think of two places where you can see alumni events that are being held or held in the past. So if you visit nyu.alumni.edu, important website, you can get to our calendar of alumni events. On that calendar, you can see what every alumni club is putting on in the upcoming months. So you should browse that, see what other alumni clubs are doing. That'll help you brainstorm. And another place is each alumni club has their own webpage within our alumni webpage. And on those club pages, you can see past events or upcoming events for each region. And that's another great place to see what events have been put on in the past to kind of help you come up with new ideas.
Yeah. And then, of course, if something today piqued your interest and you thought, wow, we had never thought about doing a paint night in my region, or we're really interested in putting together a baseball game with a social, reach out to us and we're happy to share with you some events that we've done like that in the past, and can certainly connect you with the volunteers who hosted those events, so they can share both the successes with you and the lessons learned. I think a big part of what we are trying to accomplish with Bobcast Live is making all of our volunteers across the globe feel a little bit closer and more connected, because you're all doing such great work. And it's really powerful to see, I think, the scope of what is happening under the umbrella of these 85 clubs.
Yeah, exactly. So with that, I think we'll wrap up. If you have other questions, we would love to hear from you, or anything to let us know. Thank you for spending this half hour with us, and we hope you have a great day.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.
Bye.